Welcome back, this is Jeff Byers, and we are going to be working on a different way pipeline into adding normal maps to this box, this Sci Fi Crate. So we are going to, instead of taking this as a high poly out and going into ZBrush and painting directly on the box, we're going to fake bake it. This is a technique that I've learned on my own to save time. So we're going to do some fake baking on this box. So we're still going to do a lot of work in ZBrush, but we're going to get started with the Sci-Fi box. You got to have, to do this, you have to have the low poly, and you have to have it laid out. You have to have the UVs laid out properly, and then make sure the object's selected and go to polygons, UV snapshot, and make sure that you have the settings I have here, and go in and browse and make sure you're saving to the source images folder on your hard drive. So make sure you have your folder set up, and I am going to call this Sci-Fi Crate UV Texture FIN finish. I know that is what we're going to be using in Photoshop. So I'm going to go ahead and save that out. I'm going to click OK on this one. Okay, so it should save out to my flash drive. It may take a few moments because my flash drive is super slow. So if you want your work to go super fast and not chug down, either save it to your desktop or make sure the project folder is on the computer. So I'm going to be saving my stuff. When I do this, I'm going to be saving this onto the desktop when I bake the maps and stuff. So that's what I'll be doing. So anyway, I'm going to have to export this out to as an OBJ. You can go in here to, again, go in here to render settings and plugin manager to get that in to show. It'll be at the bottom. So OBJ, export selection, and I'm just going to click on create export finished, or actually put low poly all caps so I don't make a mistake. Alright, so we're going to bake that whole entire map so we can get the correct baking. So I'm going to go in to XNormal, and we're going to do a fake bake. This is something I discovered on my own. So high definition, we're actually going to load the low poly. So I'm going to click off what I have. I'm going to get rid of what I have in there, and let me remove those. Okay, so we'll start off fresh. So high definition, under file, add, and I'm going to click on create export low poly. So high definition, it is absolutely not a high definition. We're gonna fool XNormal thinking something's there, and we're gonna basically bake out a blank map. So I'm going to go into low definition and add meshes. Click on low poly again. There we go. So I've got two of the same exact objects in this scene. I'm going to go to baking options. I'm going to create a normal map. Now we will not do an ambient occlusion map, but we're going to go ahead and create a normal map. So 2048 by 2048, and we want to save this to the desktop. Because my flash drive is so slow. I'll anyway transfer it over later. So go to the desktop, okay, call it something that makes sense. Create normal map, and make sure it's a Targa TGA, okay, and click save. Alright, and generate map. This will be a completely, it won't be completely blank. I guess we do have some detail, which is pretty interesting. Okay, it doesn't matter. We can clean that up pretty easily. The basic thing what I wanted to get out of this was to get a nice color, the color that we need to actually use. And so we'll go ahead and close that. And for now we'll close this and we'll go into Photoshop. And this is going to be our base. So I'm going to open up my object that I was using. So I baked and Sci-Fi, and let's look for my Sci-Fi UV map finish. There it is. Open that up, and that's what I'm looking for. And then I'm going to go into File, Open, and I'm going to go to the desktop and find that image I just created. It is a Targa Crate normal map. I think that's it. Yeah, there it is. So that's what I created, and now I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use the paintbrush. Okay, and I'm going to sample basically this color and paint. So I'm going to sample this color, which is kind of a weird color. Click on OK, and I can use a large brush and just paint, and this will be our blank canvas. It's the same exact size, and what we're going to do here is we are going to add the high definition maps that we create out of ZBrush. So I'll do a couple to kind of give you an idea how this works. So in here I'm going to go ahead and just kind of move that over. So I'm going to hold the Shift key and dump that right over the top, holding the Shift key, the selection, and then I'm going to turn that off. We don't need this anymore. Okay. And so here's my normal map. I'm going to go ahead and pull that down about 50% or whatever. Okay. Alright, so the next step is to create detail, and we kind of know where things are at in here, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to go in here, and so I did my first fake bake, and then we're going to continue with the baking process using ZBrush. I'll do one bake. So I'm going to go ahead and import my alpha map that I created in Photoshop in the last video tutorials, and so Sci Fi Crate and source images, and you can see I've got some cool crate detail. So I'm going to open up the first one. It's a button that I created. So I'm going to go into the tool here, click on the tool, and I'm going to click on plane. Okay, so plane 1. Okay, I'm going to draw that plane out and hit the T key or hit edit. So T key, and then I'm going to go over here to make polymesh 3D and click that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm kind of want to see what it looks like, the polygon, so I'm going to click on poly F. Okay, and now I can see how many divisions there are, so that's very low poly. Click off of that. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, kind of straighten it out, and then I'm going to hit the frame, so you can hit the F key, and that frames it perfectly in front of you. So the Shift key kind of, if it's rotated, hold the Shift key down and move your left mouse button anywhere in the black. Okay, so now we're ready to paint. So I'm going to go back and find my button. Okay, I'm going to go into the center here. Okay, and if I right click over this, you can see my draw size, the intensity is 25, focal shift. You can take all those. We need to have the stroke to be drag rectangle. Okay, and then the brush needs to be a standard brush. Okay, stroke, there we go. Alright, so now we're ready to paint. So go in here in the middle, right in the middle, and draw out. Now notice that the button just doesn't work very well because it's trying to pull out from the very low resolution image. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z. Alright, so we got that set up. What we need to do now is we need to go in here, and now that we have Make Polymesh 3D, we can export that out as a low poly object. Okay, so I'm going to do this to the desktop, and I'm going to call it plain low poly. Okay, so plain low poly, and then click save. Okay, right, so that's our low poly. We actually saved that, exported that out as an OBJ, so you got to make sure that's OBJ. Okay, and you can call it, I called it plain low poly. Alright, so cancel that because you can do that. And then under here we're going to click on Smart, SM, or Smooth, excuse me, turn that off. So it's on, so turn that off, and then go ahead and click Divide. And we're going to divide up to 1 million, just about 1 million polygons. So I divided it to 6. You can see the divisions here. And I'm clicking on that button to get to that point. If you go higher, just pull that down to 6. Okay? Alright. So now I can draw this out, and it should look pretty good. So I'm going to just guesstimate in the middle and pull that out. There we go. And there's my detail. So I can make it as large as I want. Here we go. And that's going to give us a nice detailed option of what I painted in Photoshop, which is pretty cool. Alright. So that's a good representation. If I want to go deeper, I sure can. Okay, I'm going to hold the Shift key and get it snapped back where it was. There we go. And then hit frame again. And I can hit the Control Z to get rid of it. I can make it a little bit deeper. Let's say I want to go to something like 40 and really pull it out. Let's try that. So I'm going to go ahead in here, right in the middle, and just pull that out. There we go. And don't have to be perfect. That's pretty good. And I'm going to rotate to see. There we go. That looks a little nicer. Okay. So, alright. So I'm going to go ahead and frame that, and hold the Shift key and kind of get that centered. And then I'm going to export that out. Okay. It's going to be 1 million polygons, so you're going to need to make sure you export it to your desktop. Otherwise, it might crash. So this time I got plain low poly. I'm going to click on that and go to just type in high on this one. There we go, high poly, all caps, whatever, and click save. So that's going to save us to the desktop. So we've got our sculpt, and now I'm going to kind of just minimize. ZBrush. Oh, shouldn't have done that. Oops. I have to wait for it to actually process. That was not a smart thing to do. I probably crashed it. Oh, let me pause it. Okay, we're back. I had crashed ZBrush, so you have to wait for this timeline to go all the way across. It gives you the time it takes to save this object out as an OBJ. So hopefully this will process and we'll get moving on. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. Okay, we're back, and we're going to go ahead and open up XNormal, and we're going to go ahead and do the fake bake on the bolt. Okay, so I'm going to go to high definition. I'm going to go ahead and delete what I have in there, and low definition, and remove that. So go back to high, right click on File, Add Meshes, and we're going to go to the desktop, and we have a high poly. So we're going to add the high poly to that. Low definitions, we're going to go to low poly. Okay. And then we're baking options. We're going to go make sure we have the normal map on, and anti-aliasing's at 4 times, and go ahead and save this out. And we'll save this to the desktop. And we're going to call this bolt 01. Save that out. It's a normal map, so I'll go ahead and generate maps. Okay, you'll get a warning. That's okay. Click OK. And there you go. Right, so the idea is to create a map, and I'll show you how to add it. And this is kind of fake baking, meaning that we're not actually bringing the object in, we're actually breaking it down to the smaller pieces. And so this generated in 33 seconds. Close that out, and we'll go ahead and close this out too as well. And you can continue doing these. So I'm going to go into Document, New. I'll do another one, and we don't want to save changes. Okay. And so this time I want to create another plane, draw it out, hit the T key, and pretty soon you're going to get really good at this. I'm going to rotate around, click on Make Polymesh 3D. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and frame it, and I'm going to take off Smooth and then divide it. So those are the things you need to do. Get it up to just roughly over 1 million. And I'm going to go in here and import another map, alpha map, that I created in Photoshop. Let's go to this one here. And so now I'm going to go ahead and go to the middle and create this high poly. Okay. And I'm going to get it as big as I can, as large as I can, and get it set up, you know, pretty square, best I can. I'm going to go ahead and try that again. Control Z. And go from the bottom a little bit and then up. There we go. That might be better. Let's try that again. Try to center it best you can and draw it out. I'm going to hold the Shift key to keep it lined up. There we go. That looks good. So I've already got a low poly plane in there. All I have to do now is just send this out. And this is pretty thick, as you can see, but that looks pretty good. I like that. Okay. So, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Let's go back and rotate that. Frame it, and I'll do that again. Here we go. Okay. That's kind of lopsided. It doesn't matter if you're close to the edge, as long as it's pretty straight. And I'm going to go ahead and export that to the desktop. And I got a plain high poly. I'm going to call this something else. I'm going to call this like plate 01. It'll be high poly, and let that export out. I'm going to go ahead and pause while that's